what's really happening in the Gaza Strip, in Israel, to Israel's north, in Lebanon, Syria, and the greater Middle East. Welcome to all our friends and family across the seas. This is Dan Diker, president of the Jerusalem Center for Public Affairs, and you are watching Frontline Gaza, the JCPA wartime diplomacy update and analysis. We're bringing you not only news, but insights behind the scenes as to what's really happening in the Gaza Strip, in Israel, to Israel's north, in Lebanon, Syria, and the greater Middle East. And boy, do we have a special guest today to discuss it, one of the Middle East's greatest, I would say, champions of press freedom, and that is Suzan Quitaz, an Iraqi Kurdish journalist who spent many years in the Middle East and as well as across Europe, reporting and analyzing trends in the Arab Muslim Middle East. And now we are deep into the war opposite the Iranian-backed Hamas in Gaza. We are deep into an evolving, intensifying conflict driven by Iran with its proxy up in Lebanon. How is the Middle East media, if I can generalize for a moment, understanding and reporting on the October 7th massacre and the subsequent war opposite Iran-backed Hamas?
When we talk about Arab media, we have to divide it. You know, you have the pro-Hamas media, which is the Qatari, the Hezbollah, and Iran, and then you have the Arab media in general. So if we first talk about the Qatari media, which is very important to start with because they are the biggest media outlet. You know, they have many TVs and a newspaper. So the Qatari media, even before the war started, they start talking about genocide being committed in Gaza. They talk about starvation. They talk about Israel blockading aid to Gazans. They would never shows that, you know, it was Hamas that started and imposed the war on Israel. When they talk about October the 7th, they would say 1,200 Israeli have been killed. They don't talk about how they were killed. They don't talk about women being raped, families being set alive, you know, elderlies being killed, and people were forcibly and violently brought to the Gaza Strip. So this is the Qatari media. Then we go to the Saudi media, which is, you know, as important as the Qatari. They are showing, I'm not saying they are supporting Israel, but they are showing a more balanced approach. When they talk about, let's start talking about the aid to Gaza. They're saying that Hamas is stealing aid, that Hamas is doing everything in its power so Gazans don't receive this aid. They talk about October the 7th, what Hamas did, how they invaded, you know, private home in the early hours of Saturday morning, about how they violated people, you know, not only raping, even, you know, dead body, the way they treated that dead body. And you have the Iraqi media. Iraqi media, again, is divided to two, one pro-Iranian and one, I would say, free media. And they talk a lot about, you know, the suffering of Gaza, but they talk about the suffering with a big question mark. Who is behind it? That doesn't mean they're supporting Israel, but they're pointing the finger at Hamas. They're saying, Hamas, why did you do what you did? Nobody is benefiting of this war beside Iran.
You describe the competition between major power media in the Middle East. It's really, the media is really driven, it seems, less by what they're seeing on the ground and more by whom their enemies are, and they're basically fitting in what they see according to the enemies that they have, and therefore tailoring the media, which is basically in Arabic, the word for public relations, a'lam, and the word for media is the same thing. And it looks like they're really tailoring and appropriating what they see according to what they already believe.
Yes, I mean, I will tell you a personal experience. So a month before October the 7th, I was in Israel filming a documentary for Al Jazeera. Straight away, I had a great relationship with the director, professional relationship with the director and the crew who are based in East Jerusalem and Ramallah. After October the 7th, the director stopped talking to me. The production team stopped talking to me. And I kept calling, sending messages. And I received a text message with one of them, tell your friend that the IDF, there are innocent people in Gaza. And then the director, whom I have known for many years, he stopped. He even blocked me. And I was like, why? I'm a journalist. First, I'm not an Israeli. I'm not Jewish. I'm someone who's doing my job. And then I get to find out, it's not good for our business. Please take our pictures from your Facebook because it's not good. And that tell you how Qatari media is working. If they could do this to one of their own journalists, a journalist who they use as a freelance basis, that give you, how they operate.
Isn't the public smarter than that across the Middle East? You've got 350 million Arab Muslims across the Middle East. And from what we understand, many of them are seeking free media. Many of them they watch Israeli media, they watch Western media because they really know that the regimes that dominate their countries are not giving them the real story.
Yeah, because we talked at the beginning, about the battle of the narrative with major Arab media outlet. Qatari ones or pro-Hamas one, and then the rest of Arab media. But there is another important voice is social media. Arabs on social media. How do Arab in social media see what Hamas did? And this is a shift I haven't seen in a previous conflict between Israel and Hamas. A lot of Arabs on social media, and I'm talking about big account from Saudi Arabia, from United Arab Emirates, even from Iraq, from Lebanon, from Egypt, they are questioning what Hamas did, the motive behind it, and they saying Hamas did an order of Iran. This was an Iranian order. But then I see something else. Every time there is a news item on Al Jazeera showing a man pulling a child from the rubble, and then because this is the only thing we see in Al Jazeera, we only see children being pulled from the rubble and women crying and starvation, and it makes a lot of Arab questioning, including myself. Are these bombs made only to kill children and women? The figures they talking about, it's a huge figures, and according to them, 80% are women and kids. So what Arabs are doing on social media, they would take the video where a man in distress taking a child from the rubble, and they will post it, and they will post another video when this very man has appeared in 3 different locations across Gaza, and they ask, what's going on? How is it possible this man could hold 3 different kids in 3 different locations in Gaza? So what these accounts are doing, they are not pro-Israeli account. These accounts are based in the heart of the Arab land. But what they're saying is, we do not believe in your lie anymore.
That's quite a revelation that there really is a search for free information, which the democratization of social networks has perhaps brought that about, as well as the general exposure to Western media. By the way, Western media itself is not as free today as it was at one point, because I think journalists have become children of revolutions, and journalists have really become opinionated and have not allowed the public to choose for itself, but are really directing the public, which makes you sort of an unusual individual, because you have in your reporting always search for both sides of a story and to try to get the truth of a story. Why is it that we do not see, following the October 7th atrocities and the subsequent, really bloody war between Hamas, Palestinian Islamic Jihad, other jihadi groups, and Israel in the Gaza Strip, why are there not more protests across the Arab world?
I think because of the brutality the brutality of October the 7th. You know, what Hamas did on October the 7th is not resistance. You know, a lot of Arabs are saying that. If Hamas had killed soldiers, yes, they, you know, this is resistance. But what Hamas did, you know, raping women, killing children, transferring elderly, you know, to Gaza Strip, this is not a resistance. I'm on daily basis with journalists living and working in the Arab world. And one of them, you know, he's a very good friend of mine as well. He's an Iraqi Arab. So he's, you know, he's not Kurdish. He's an Iraqi Arab. And he said, what Hamas this is disgust him. You know, it's disgust him. And keep asking, why would Hamas transfer an 85-years old, a Holocaust survivor, to Gaza? Why would you take a baby 9-month-old and take him to Gaza under the banner of resistance? This is not resistance. You know, and I feel sorry for Muslim, because what Hamas is doing and the Islamists is doing is hijacking the religion. There is nowhere in Islam who say it's okay, you know, it's resistant to kill a woman. It's okay to rape women. And what the Arab world is seeing, what Hamas did in October the 7th, they see it in parallel with Daesh did with the Yazidi Kurds. I mean, where is the difference?
In Iraq, in the Yazidis
yeah.
in Iraq, and also there are atrocities in Syria.
Yes, I mean, where are the different? Daesh said these women are kuffar, they infidels, and they did it, you know, to spread fear, and to dehumanize, you know, the Yazidi community. But they did it as well, you know, like to other Muslims, especially Shia in Syria. And now the Arab world is wondering, what's the difference between Hamas? What's the difference between Hamas and Daesh?
What is the comparison? You and I chatted about it before we went on the program. In the minds of the Arab publics across the region, when they look at remember the 2006 Iranian-instructed Hezbollah war against Israel, and here they see a lot of similarities. With the Hamas invasion, even though Israel, in 2006, it was Hezbollah that captured several soldiers, killed them, and that triggered a massive counterattack by Israel. Here, you have sort of a level of civilian Gazan barbarism and savagery that we didn't see in the 2006 war. Nonetheless, your point was that there's a certain comparison that's being drawn by the broader Arab, mostly Sunni public across the region.
Yeah, so if we go to, 2006, just like, weeks before the war started, a war that Hezbollah imposed on Israel, Hezbollah, Nasrallah, he was seen as a hero. He was respected by not only by Arab, Sunni and Shia, but including Christians, young Christian who saw him as the Che Guevara of the Middle East. But when the war erupted, and there was a destruction, in Beirut. A lot of people start asking, why did you drag Lebanon to a war with Israel? Why did you do this to the Lebanese people? And I remember, the king of Saudi, he said that what Hezbollah did was an idiotic for taking Lebanon to war with Israel. And at the beginning, there were a lot of voices, again, claiming that the king of Saudi Arabia, the late king, that he's a Zionist and he's supporting the pro-Zionist narrative. But the Arab world are much more, the Arab people are much more smarter than that. Even if we don't hear their voices in Arab media, especially in Al Jazeera, they're smart. They know this whole thing, it's in Hezbollah and Hamas. All they're doing is serving the Iranian agenda.
I would call it the perception across the Middle East that what they call the radical Shia, which they mean when they say that, they mean the Iranian regime, the mullahs, and their military terror arm, which is the IRGC, the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, and the Quds Force across the Middle East. These are all names and terms and ideas that are very familiar with Arab Easterners. These are not in the consciousness very much of the West, which is to say we've moved from the Arab media into the Middle Eastern public consciousness and positions of people. And now we want to talk about what I think is a head-on collision between political cultures and preferences and opinions of the Arab Muslim world, largely, as well as other minorities, in the Druze minorities, the Alawi minorities, the Turkmen and Baluchi minorities, and the and other moderate, what we call moderate Shia majorities, whether it's in Lebanon or whether it's in Bahrain or whether it's in country Iraq, other countries in which Sunni and Shia live together. They were saying, why is the West taking in so many radical, extremist, violent Islamists if those same Islamists are being criticized and expelled by many countries in the Middle East that are really seeking stability and moving away from Iranian subversion?
Yeah. The first thing I will start with is do not criticize Israel for fighting Islamic Jihad and Hamas, because in the Arab world and in the entire Arab world, not only in the Gulf, but in Egypt, in Iraq, in Algeria, even in Algeria, government spend millions of money on monthly basis to fight Islamic extremism. Millions across the Arab world, and these are Muslims who have been killed by Islamists. And like a few years ago, the late Sheikh Nahyan in United Arab Emirates, he was saying that we spend so much effort to fight and root out Islamic extremism. And the same voice coming from Saudi Arabia and Bahrain, they cracking down on Islamic extremism, but the West is not helping us. What the West is doing is giving a refugee to these extremist figures. Today, the threat of political Islam does not come from the Arab world. Certainly does not come from United Arab Emirates or Bahrain or Egypt or Saudi Arabia. It comes from the West, especially United Kingdom, where there are many of them and the government are aware. They all exist. They incite to hatred. They incite to violence, especially violence against Yahudi.
So, you're saying that Islamism, Muslim extremism in the West, is far more dangerous and acute than it is across the Arab Muslim world.
Of course, because what you see in the Arab world, they're fighting this. They're fighting this cancerous, poisonous snake. If you go to any Arab country, especially in the Gulf region, there is a zero tolerance. You go to Britain, you will see them in the street, especially every Saturday, with their slogans. Palestine will be free from the river to the sea, with pictures of Netanyahu calling him Hitler, calling him Nazis, saying that the Holocaust has been committed in Gaza. Do you know what's going on in Gaza? It's a war. And sadly, in war, even when the IDF, they try their best so innocent people don't get killed, people do get killed. But you can't say Gaza it's a Auschwitz. Gaza it's a Holocaust. But the West is doing nothing about it. It's a lot of talk. Just 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister of Britain, Rishi Sunak, he gave a speech where he talked about, the danger Islamists pose on the democracy on Britain. But where are the new law? It was just a talk. And we know that is a real threat because the government increased the budget to protect politicians.
If you put a group of Arab Muslims and also Kurds like yourself and others who live in the region, who speak Arabic, who have grown up in the Arab Muslim majority culture, how would they react to the recent decision of the United States to supply humanitarian aid, number one, and open a port in Gaza? May I suggest that they would say, the Hamas would say, hey, look, the United States is on our side. Not that they feel sorry for us, but that the United States believes in Hamas's victory over the Jews. They look at it as a victory for them and a defeat for the Jews. What do you think about that?
No, because I read a lot and I follow a lot big Arab social media account and the comments. They see it victory for Gaza. Hamas is stealing the aid. And for the aid to reach Gaza, you don't have to go through Hamas. If you go through this port, it will go straight away to the people. So they don't see it as a victory to Hamas. You know, Hamas comes out on TV on a daily basis, almost every hour, and claiming victory. We are victory, you know, and they're asking people to, especially now we are in Ramadan, to express rage against or to commit jihad against the oppressor. People know that Hamas is lying. They do know Hamas is lying, you know. The Arab people are not stupid. They know where Hamas is and where Hamas is sitting. They're sitting in Doha and in Tehran and in Beirut and in Ankara, and they want the poor people in Gaza, and they want these people to sacrifice their life so Senora could stay in his tunnel, and what's his name, Ismail Haniya could enjoy his luxury life in Doha. People are waking up to it. And I have seen Arab media, not Al Jazeera. Again, I say not Qatari media, Saudi media outlet, Iraqi media outlet. They put on report of people of Gaza cursing Hamas for what they did to them. You know, they saying what we're going through today, it's because of your action on October the 7th. And I would love to see a report like that in Western media. You don't see that on Sky News. You do not see that on the BBC. They would not even consider inviting someone like myself to show the other side of the story, you know, the other side of the story. So in a way, you know, they all working. It's like indirectly they're working for Hamas, not the Arab media, but more the Western media.
That's an exclamation point. The Western media is de facto working for Hamas as opposed to reporting free information that would really corner the Hamas. This is one of the pieces of real misinformation and misunderstanding, I think, that the West has about this political conflict, not understanding that from Hamas, Iranian regime, Hezbollah, the Houthis, the Iranian special forces in Iraq, Syria, it is a religious war against the Jews. It is not a war about territory.
You know, I'm not asking these media to invite someone like myself. I want them to invite a Palestinian journalist who actually care about what's going on in Gaza. Bring these people, you know, these people who will tell you what Hamas is doing. Why are you not bringing these people? Why are you not bringing Palestinian journalists who post report after report on social media showing how people are cursing and rising against Hamas? None of these journalists would be invited or giving a platform, you know? And these people, you know, these people are Palestinian. These people are Gazan who lives in Gaza. Just invite them. Invite them or question the figure Hamas tell you. According to Hamas, 30,000 people have been killed in Gaza. Of this 30,000, 25,000, so we're talking about 80% are women and children, and not any children, female children. Do you know, as a journalist, you should question this number. So what are you trying to say, that 80% of the victims, they are female? It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
That's what we're trying to do right here, is to make sense. And I think what I would cap this program, I would call it the underreported Arab uprising against Hamas. And it's not only among many in Gaza, but it's also people questioning across the Middle East. Let me thank you for these 3 segments for our JCPA JLTV Frontline Gaza, the JCPA Wartime Update program with our dear friend and colleague Suzan Quitaz, one of the leading reporters across the Middle East, reporting free media, truthful information, trying to get to the objective truth behind very complex stories. Allow me to thank you, Suzan, for this first of many, what we hope will be many, updates, analysis by you across the very complex, dramatic, and much misunderstood Middle East.